you never had to find an
told me
easier
you
path.
never change your ways. You told me that. You told me that. You told me you never walk away. You told me that. You told me that.
So you think this was like an intelligent design? It wasn't an accident.
No, it might not have been, you know what I mean? We might have, this might be the 100th trial, we, you know what I mean? It was 99 failures before, you know what I mean? And we're the 100, you know what I mean? We're the,
Failures of what?
of his other tries, of other beings that he might have created before he swiped, you know what I mean? Oh, that ain't work, you know, let's try this again, let's come up with, you know what I mean?
So you feel like, so you don't think that God is like a perfect being that never fails?
No,
You think he fails?
as far as his failures is, I mean, I'm not fail, it's not as of a failure, I would say, it's not as a failure, it's just.
All right, let me reword it then, because like when you say this might be the 100th trial, and it just so happened to be.
It's not his failure, because if he leave it up to, like he leave it up to us, you know what I mean? He left it up to them and his other trials, you know what I mean? And they failed to, you know what I mean, go in the route that he wanted them to go into without his direction, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's, that was his trial to, like, we live our own faith, you know what I mean? Everything, like you said, we follow our own path, you know what I mean? But at the end of the day, if it was supposed to move like this and it didn't move like that, and maybe it was, you know what I mean? Of course, we see a lot of things now, chaos, all that things, you know what I mean, on the daily as we see, you know, now. But if it was maybe peaked at 1,000,000 times, and you're like, oh, yeah, no, this wasn't it, this ain't, you know what I mean? It wasn't supposed to move like this. It wasn't his necessary failure, but it was the failure of those, you know what I mean, the route they chose, but, you know what I mean, from his free willing of going, you know what I mean, however you want to go. But
So so you think that God was trying out how to create what we have now, and this just happened to be the best of the trials?
it might not even be the best. It might have been one of the, and it may be other trials out there right now. Like I said, necessarily me and myself, I don't feel we're the only people in the universe. So, but other than that, moving just to answer your question, we might not even been the best trial. It might not have been the most successful trial. We were a trial that, you know what I mean, everything, you know, everything has an audit, you know what I mean, and a certain percentage rate for that audit to be successful, and if it would be, you know what I mean, non-successful. So you got to reach just say, oh yeah, for this to be successful for your company, it has to reach a 70% threshold, you know what I mean, of your expectations, you know what I'm saying? If you don't reach that 70% expectation threshold, then what you do, you gotta trash it, you know what I mean, and go on, or try to reevaluate it and make it better to where it can make that, you know, meet your expectations.
When you put it like that, it makes it seem like God, he doesn't see the end from the beginning. So, like when I think of God, I think of perfection. I think of all powerful, all knowing, not bound by time. So, he's everywhere at once, including the past and the future. Like
Definitely agree with you on that.
everywhere at once.
Yeah.
So, it's when I think of God like that, I feel like it doesn't fit the narrative for him to have different trials. Like he'll create something and that's just what it is. It's gonna be what he wanted it to be the first time because he's all knowing. And he can see the end from the beginning. Does that make sense?
I mean, I understand you to a point, but as far as, you know what I mean, he, you know, without that pure direction of, you know what I mean, us living, you see people, you know what I mean, in the world, how they live, you know what I mean, without his pure direction, you know what I mean, and some people have those factors in those lives that are like a binary spirit of God, you know what I mean, like people grew up with your aunts, you know what I mean, going to church and things like that, you know what I mean, just constantly and putting that in their insight of a direction, you know what I mean, of where to be in life. But it's just like, it's the choices of that freedom that he gave us, you know what I mean? Yeah, he created us, boom, you know what I mean? I want y'all to, like I said again, there's an expectation I do have, and yeah, but giving us the free will, you know what I mean? Yeah, don't get me wrong, he knows all and everything, but he still, you know what I mean? You might know a person, you know what I mean? Getting me wrong, this person F up, you know what I mean? It's F up, you know what I mean? It's F up. But when you know, you come around, you know, he come to you like, or he come to you, or you come to him like, I know you're gonna F up, but I'm gonna let him go and give him a try, you know what I mean? See if he could overturn my thought, or give me something different to look at, a different view upon something to look at, you know what I mean?
Yeah, so I feel like that happens now. Like, okay, God made us, he knew we was gonna mess up, but it's about getting back up again and trying not to mess up. You know, really wanting to live that life where you don't mess up. So it is a mistake, instead of you just turning and doing your own thing outside of the way he wants you to live. But I still don't feel like that would solve the whole trial thing. You know what I mean? Like, even, let's say this is a trial. It's a lot of people that's messed up out here. The F-ups, they all over the place. So,
but we meet the threshold. We meet the threshold of the F-ups, you know what I mean, from the previous trial.
Boom, right. So look, why wouldn't the threshold of the previous trials be the same as the one that you said, okay, this threshold will work, if God already knows the end of those trials from the beginning? It's like you could say, God already, if it was trials, God's all powerful, all knowing. So he already knew what the 99 trials was going to be about. And this 100th one, the threshold is at the perfect spot. So we meet that threshold. An all powerful God, in my mind, like what I know God to be, that would have been number one. Because he can see past all the mistakes already. It ain't, you know what I mean? He's like, he's in a state of perfection to where there's no such thing as a trial for him. Like, this is what it is, and that's it. You know what I mean?
I can understand that.
So what do you think about that? Does that change, like, the way you would look at that?
Not necessarily, because I still feel like, you know what I mean, he's, like I said, he sees, I mean, yeah, he sees it all, but also he's given that faith into us to move a certain way and to change it. So he, you know what I mean, to give a change. But
Like right now, like in this trial, like what would be the difference in how he wants us to get better?
I mean, I don't know. I can't speak for him. You know what I mean? I don't know. I can't speak for as.
Well, what would you think?
But as far as like, it's just like of an instance of, I don't know. Like I said, the other trials didn't work, so let me give them this. Let me take this way. Let me give them this. Let me offer this. You know what I mean? To give the different insights on of him knowing, like, okay, I knew, or if I knew they wouldn't interact with that well, but let me give them less of it, you know what I mean? Let me give them more of this. They should, you know what I mean? And if we don't, intake it properly, you know what I mean, then it wasn't, you know what I mean, from our will of living, you know what I mean?
Yeah. So a trial and error process.
On our behalf, not his, on our behalf.
So for him, it's not a trial and error process.
No, he's trying to, it's up for us to show him something different. Like you said, he knows it's up to us to show him something different from what he give and take from us. Like, you know what I mean?
It's a little confusion there. I'm gonna get off of that. I'm gonna rewatch this part and then ask some more questions later. Like, not today, but I'll probably reach out to you like, okay, I rewatched it and I got some more questions about that viewpoint right there, because it's kind of like sporadic in my head right now. But okay, so you think there's an all-powerful God, but you don't think it's the God of the Bible. Like you don't think Jesus was God.
I don't necessarily, you know what I mean, go off the Bible, you know what I mean, as far as the word of man and the flaw of man. Yeah, no.
So you don't think that the Bible is God's word.
Not necessarily, no. I do believe it's, you know what I mean, it's a gem, don't get me wrong, there's things in there to take from, to move, you know what I mean, to move right, you know, move righteously, but not necessarily, like I said, from man's word of saying, you know, just from the flaw of man, just over time.
Yeah, men are flawed.
Oh, yeah.
So now, all right, let me focus on that real quick, just to throw something out there. So now, yeah, you're definitely spitting facts when you say that men are flawed. Look at us. Who can argue that? Men are flawed, period. So knowing that is the reason why, is one of the reasons why the case for the Bible being truly the Word of God is stronger for me. Now let me explain why. Men are most definitely flawed. So knowing this, and then how we came up with what's in the book is it's amazing. It's strange. It's weird. It don't make sense how flawed men could make something so perfect beyond what we even know how perfect it is. So now let me explain what I mean when I say how they made something so perfect. We got the Bible, right? And the Bible is not just one book. At least the one here is 66 books, all written at different times by different people. There's actually 40 plus authors in the Bible. All of these people didn't know each other at all. It was written over, gotta fact check me, over 1,500 plus years. Like, it maybe even more than that. I might be bugging. But it was written over a very long period of time. And I'm talking about the individual books. So, you know,
Yeah,
it starts
section,
off,
section.
yeah,
Piece
like,
together.
right. Oh, that's your phone. So yeah, so when you got all of these different authors living at different times throughout history, over this big span of time, all saying the same thing, and it's not just like stories where this is like in a historically accurate document. Like, there's no scholar that doesn't take the Bible as an historical document. Like you go to other religions, like say use the Quran for example. It's not a historical document. You know what I mean? But like scholars wouldn't go to it like this is proof of anything. You know what I'm saying? But they do that with the Bible because it matches with world history perfectly, like to a T. I think there's a number. It's like 98.6% historical accurate. It's the most historically accurate document in the world. That is a little strange if over 40 different authors wrote 66 books at different times throughout all of these years, and they all align talking about the same thing. That's like more than a coincidence. Like a few things, it's coincidence. But when you talk about the stories, they're using real people in history, not made up characters, you know, like somebody's just writing a fiction book. It's real people in history that exist outside of the Bible. It's real cities in history that exists, you know, in real life, not just in the Bible. It exists outside the Bible, and then the archaeological finds to back the craziest Bible stories. That's you can't get that from the Bible. You see what I mean? There's a actually there's I just did a video on there was a new discovery just found not too long ago, and I think it was Germany, and they found somebody buried in a tomb 1,500 years ago. He was buried in his tomb, and it was in the 2nd century, like it's from the 2nd century. He had an amulet on, and there was 18 lines, you know, encrypted into the amulet, like they, you know how they used to write on tablets and stuff. It would be carved in there, like it wasn't with a pencil. It was carved in there, and what's carved on there is actually quoting a book in the Bible. It's quoting Paul. Now that's crazy because a lot of people say that, you know, we didn't even have the Bible till the 4th century, which we already know that that's a proven lie. Like that's not true. The Bible was just canonized in the 4th century, but the books were still there. You know what I mean? It just wasn't one book. They were still all separated books. So this is all the way in the 2nd century, and he's writing about Jesus being God, and he's quoting, you know, a book that Paul wrote that's now in the Bible. You see what I mean? That's way back in the 2nd century, and it's in Germany. So like, there's more. I say that to show like there's a whole lot of sources outside of the Bible that prove people was talking about these things. Like it's not just in the Bible. What do you think about that? How over 40 different authors all saying the same thing, didn't meet each other over all this time, all saying the same thing, all pointing towards Christ, all worshiping Yahweh.
I mean, it's not a coincidence. There's something there, you know what I mean, for sure. But you know what I mean. It's just like there's just a lot of information out there upon different things, you know what I mean. Especially like the hieroglyphics, you know what I mean, on walls that they find is other characters too as well, you know what I mean. Different things they talk about the Anunnaki and stuff like that. It's a whole bunch of stuff out there as well, just that necessarily. I don't totally disregard the Bible. I keep keep the high insight, you know what I mean, from it, from what I hear, definitely from what I hear from you, you know what I mean. You know, get a lot of information from you. I definitely intake it, you know what I mean, and try to, you know what I mean, and bring in a lot of stuff, information, you know what I mean, especially so I'm not, you know what I mean, definitely one-sided, but, you know.
What is it about the Anunnaki? You mentioned the Anunnaki. Why does that take away from, I would say, your strength of belief in the Bible?
Because that's in a lot of hieroglyphics and a lot of places they, you know, or a lot of places they found the hieroglyphics they discovered, you know what I mean, to talk about the Anunnaki, you know what I mean, these and that God, you know what I mean, and or how there were, you know what I mean, basically a God, and you know, he had angels and they, you know what I mean, walk the earth, you know what I mean, doing things, you know what I mean, and
Well, you know that fallen angels definitely walk the earth.
yeah, for sure.
So,
And it's just like I said, it's just like it's so much, you know what I mean, that coincides to one thing, you know what I mean, that leads to one thing, you know what I mean, overall, everything, you know what I mean, ultimately is leading to that one thing, but it's like, you know what I mean, the routes, you know what I mean, it's just the routes.
so you think that all these people are worshiping the same God but going different routes?
Yeah, for real, yeah.
So you think back in the day when they was finding these hieroglyphics and you seen how they was worshiping the sun god and all these different things. You know what I mean? Like, and you see how they would make sacrifices to these different gods and stuff. You think that that was all the same God?
Yeah, it's all one God. It was just their path and what they insight on how they were to please that one God, or how they were taught to, perceive or their relationship with that one God, rather it was through certain things or through sacrifices and stuff like that.
So, do you think that God would want you to sacrifice babies to a statue?
No.
Because that's what they was doing.
So
Like,
I definitely said some of them were. That's why I said their paths. You know what I mean? Their paths on what they were taught and how to, with their relationship, how they were taught to build their relationship with God. Rather it was sacrifice of babies, young kids, sheep, goats. You know what I mean? It's just a path. But alternatively, it was one God at which they were trying to worship. Right?
so what if
Rather
these
than
paths contradict?
rather than it was, satanic, you know what I mean? Rather, if it's not meaningly satanic, you know what I mean, then I feel there was in a genuine aspect to, praise God, but
By
like I said,
sacrificing the baby.
but that wasn't, like I said, that was their route and hand of doing it, which I wouldn't say it was right, you know what I mean?
So if you the one to say it was right, why you think it was right for them?
I ain't the one to say who or what, you know what I mean?
You don't think that there's only one right? Like, you think two people can be right even if they contradict, like they have their own truth?
It's to a certain, it's hard to say as far as yeah and no, but yeah.
So you think two truths that contradict, it can work like that, like, or three or four, everybody can have their own truth, even if my truth is calling your truth a lie, vice versa, but they can all be true, but just to that person, and that's just their path.
That's your thing. I mean, that person's truth. That's their person. They're living there. Rather it's they living it for God or not, or you know what I mean, righteousness or not, or however, whatever path they walk in. But that's their truth.
You said besides if it's satanic. Now you know that there's a whole group of people out there that are Satanists, and they think that Satan is who's to be worshipped.
Yeah. That's why I made that separation from it.
So but they think that's the truth though. So you would say that they're wrong, they don't have the truth, where everybody else can have their own truth, but that isn't true.
No, I'm saying that they may find their truth, you know what I mean? And their path, that's their truth, you know what I mean? And I'm looking at them as they're wrong, and in my truth, they're wrong, you know what I mean?
But so, what about the contradiction?
That's why
They're either right or they're wrong.
No, I even said, even though sacrifices, you know what I mean, not satanically those satanically, and my truth, they were wrong, but in their truth, they were right. They were,
So
that
who's
was
right?
it for them in their truth.
So who's right, you or them?
I don't know. That's up to that man, that God, to determine and decide and come up with.
So what about let's say racism in the United States?
I mean, that's different because
No, check me out.
because racism isn't
Not racism, slavery.
Slavery wasn't a thing to praise God. Like those what's names are things to they're sitting there praying. They're having a whole.
Hear me out though. Their truth was black people aren't fully people. It's okay to do this. Like and that's what the truth was. There was nothing wrong with it at all.
That's like I said, that's their truth. And today they still feel like that. They still live in that truth. You know what I mean? Which
But was it right or was it wrong?
And my truth in living, it was wrong. Like I said,
But
again,
it was right for them though.
and their truth.
So if they tried to enslave black people again right now, it wouldn't be nothing wrong with that.
And our truth, and black people's truth, and our truth, that would be wrong, yes.
But for them though, it's okay for them to do that just because that's how they feel.
It's okay for them to, I guess, feel like that, or, you know what I mean, it's many opinions, many thoughts, many, you know what I mean, aspirations that people get that they believe in everything, you know what I mean, they don't necessarily, you know what I mean, go out and take action for it, but, you know what I mean, that's what, it's a lot of those people out there who have these crazy beliefs, crazy thoughts and everything like that,
But it's true for them though.
and their way of living it's true for them.
So
Not
yeah,
my way of living it, you know what I mean?
right, but that's because you know that it's wrong and you trying to live right. Agreed?
Yeah.
So
I'm trying to live right from what from what I was taught, you know what I mean, what it was right.
Okay, so pretty much you saying that everybody has their own truth and everybody can live whatever way they want to, and that's just it. And you can't really talk about anybody doing anything. So Jeffrey Dahmer, it was okay for him to do what he was doing because that was his truth.
Not
He
necessarily,
felt
you
like,
said not necessarily we can't talk. Yeah, we could talk about it because in our lives that ain't our truth. That's why we can't talk about it.
but it is, well, okay, so you can talk about it, but why should you be able to act on it? And why should Jeffrey Dahmer be put in prison for doing what he did? Because he just living out his truth.
Because now that's something different now because you're coming toward as far as a system, you know what I mean, a corporate system, the government and everything like that, and laws now, you know what I mean, then laws, you know what I mean.
So
Other
what
than
if
that,
your truth is within, so you saying as long as your truth is within not breaking the law, then you can live it out. It don't matter as long as you're not breaking no laws.
No, there's some people's truth who is gonna break the law. There's some people.
But there's something wrong with that.
No, not necessarily. No, I mean because there's something wrong with the government. It's not necessarily wrong with what you know what I mean. It's something wrong with the government. Yeah, the government is in shadow of right and wrong. Most things, you know what I mean, people get locked up for is not necessarily. I want to say, as far as what you should get locked up for is right, you know what I mean? As far as the court process and everything, that's something different, you know what I mean? Because some people are, you know, some people go through the actions of, you know what I mean, being locked up and totally innocent, and that's all because of the system. But that's why I said that's something totally different. But as far as there's laws that we humanely should be living by, or we should know we live by, or should live by humanely because of, you know what I mean, we were instilled those values, we were taught that, you know what I mean, you know what I mean, through how we grew up, through the people we were raised by, you know.
Okay, so pretty much you just think it's up to the person.
As far as knowing right and wrong without there necessarily having to be laws, you know what I mean, to, you know what I mean, end the life of
But
living.
you said right and wrong. Right and wrong is just up to that person, though, whatever the truth is, according to, you know, what you just put out there.
As far as according to us, as far as to God, what's right and wrong necessarily, hey, that's up to him. But like I said again, it's them paths, you know what I mean? We all, at the end of the day, it's one finish line, you know what I mean? And it's take a route, you know what I mean? But if
It don't even matter if they contradict, like
some
it is
people
what
don't,
it is.
some people don't, I mean, those contradictions take you away from the finish line and some people don't get to finish the race, you know what I mean? Some people don't, it's not a race for everybody to finish.
Well, what's the race?
The life and the next stage and with the belief in God and everything like that, you know what I mean? And from there, the consequences and the repercussions for not believing in them and, you know what I mean, believing in them.
So what do you think about Jesus Christ?
I don't necessarily believe in the figure of Jesus Christ, you know, I believe in God, you know what I mean, that's part of the Bible, which I don't necessarily, you know what I mean,
Well, you know that
interact with, but I believe in God.
you know that. So you don't believe he was a real person?
I don't, like I said, from their stories, from what's in the Bible, yeah, I hear he was a
All right, so
real person.
what if I take the Bible out of it and I show you different sources that don't have anything to do with? Matter of fact, I'll show you sources that come from atheists that prove Jesus was a real person. Would it change the way you viewed anything? Because you know that Jesus, just in history, is a real person. In any continent you go on, and you look into their history, you're gonna find Jesus is in their history. No matter where you go, like, I mean, you can be in Asia, looking up history, and you'll find that Jesus was a real person. You'll find that in their history, you can go to Rome, you can go to Egypt, anywhere you go, bro, is Jesus lived, he died, and then some people like to say whatever after that. Like, you know what I believe, he rose from the grave, because there's proof that he rose from the grave. There's eyewitnesses, we got eyewitness testimony.
What other things do they say? Just coincide. What other things do they say?
Oh, so look, all right, so I'm gonna keep it modern.
Cause I'm messing up.
That's cool. I'm glad I can be able to show you this. It might change your outlook on everything. There's somebody that's alive today. He's probably he's the most known atheist in the world. His name is Bart Ehrman. He don't believe in God. He don't believe in the Bible. But he's a scholar. So he's come to the conclusion, yeah, when you study world history, you realize that Jesus was a real person outside of the Bible. Jesus was a real person. Jesus was crucified under Pontius Pilate. And 3 days later, there's a lot of people that claim to have seen Jesus after he was crucified 3 days later. He states that it's clear that the disciples and apostles, or at least some of them, they really think that they saw Christ after he was crucified. He doesn't say that he agrees, like, I think Jesus rose from the dead, because he doesn't believe in that. But what he does write is, he knows that they believe that. Like, it's obvious that this isn't just a made-up story. Like, these people that wrote these books, and not even just in here, but outside of here, people have claimed to see Jesus, and they really believe that. Back in the day, there's a scholar, his name is Josephus. You look into him, and he's actually talking about how, in one of his writings, I read the so-called Christ. That's what he wrote. So obviously he didn't believe in Christ. He was a so-called Christ, and he says that there was hundreds of madmen going around claiming that they saw Jesus, the so-called Christ, after he was crucified. So obviously he don't believe them either. But he did put in his writings, which is part of history, that there was hundreds of madmen. Why there was madmen? Probably because they were saying that they saw somebody that was dead. That's why he would say that they're madmen. He also probably thought that Jesus was into some type of witchcraft or something. You know what I mean? He might have thought that they was under his spell or something. But nonetheless, that's proof that there was people that claimed to see him after he died. Now, there's actually a whole lot more than just this. I just wanted to give you something modern, a modern day scholar, the most famous atheist that's alive today. He can attest to the fact that, yeah, they definitely think that they saw Jesus after he died. Jesus definitely was a real person, and he died. He was crucified. but he doesn't believe them. And then we go back in the day to around Jesus' time, a little bit after. Yeah, this is what was happening, and these madmen, hundreds of them, claim they saw Jesus after he was dead. Like, this is not in the Bible, nowhere. It's not part of the Bible at all. It's not a biblical writing. This is coming from just historical sources. But it doesn't stop there. That's just two, like from today and from yesterday. That's just two. I could show you, like, 10 to 20 proofs outside of the Bible that Jesus really died on the cross and then he rose from the grave. And there's a lot of things that happened after Jesus died when he wasn't here that can attest to the fact that, whoa, these people definitely had to have seen him or they wouldn't be living like this. All the disciples were martyred. All they had to do was go back to their regular ways of living before they met Jesus. He's dead. He's gone. Obviously, he ain't who he said he was. I'm going back to this. Because after they crucified Christ, they made it illegal to preach anything that had to do with Jesus. You wasn't allowed to write books. You wasn't allowed to spread the message at all, or they would crucify you too. And that was for a 300-year period. You wasn't allowed to say anything or do anything Christian-like. What did they do? They chose to live their life on the run. They chose to set up churches and have meetings in secret and stuff for all of these years. The person that died with that amulet on, that was within that period where you wasn't allowed to be doing nothing like this. And he died with the amulet on. So he was risking his life, and he lived at a time where he didn't even meet Jesus. But he met the apostles, like the church fathers that were connected to the apostles, you know what I'm saying? Because the disciples kept going, and they all got martyred. They was all put to death for living how they was living. But there was something in them that would not deny Christ. They had to have seen him after death. The Bible teaches that when Christ died, they all disappeared. They went into hiding. Jesus came and showed himself to them 3 days later. That brought them back out of hiding. That was like, that's it. If you see somebody rise from the dead, you probably gonna listen to everything that they got to say, right? Like, if I died and I came back tomorrow, like, bro, they just dug me out of the tomb because they heard me beating on my tombstone. Like, I was trying to get that thing up off the ground. You would listen to everything that I had to say, wouldn't you?
Where?
I just rose from the dead, and I'm trying to tell you, look, this is what it is. And but what will make it even more, more serious is if I told you I was going to rise from the dead before I did it. You'll listen to everything that I had to say, wouldn't you? And this is exactly what happened. This is exactly how we got the Bible now. But this is all New Testament stuff I'm talking about. Next time, I'm going to show you some things in the Old Testament, bro. These writers, they didn't know any of the writers from the Old Testament. They didn't even know each other. But they was pointing to the Messiah coming, which was Jesus. All of them pointing toward the Messiah coming, saying who the Messiah is going to be, what he's going to do. Jesus came, he claimed to be exactly who they said he was. And this is not just one prophet, it's multiple prophets, all saying the same thing. He came and did exactly what they said he was going to do. He left a message that fit everything that came before him. He fulfilled everything. You see what I mean? It's so wild. There's no way that Jesus couldn't be who he said he is. But anyway, this is why I believe that the Bible is true. Because if a man does these things, nobody can do that. You can't rise from the grave. No man has ever done that. It's not happening. You're not about to tell me, look, I'm going to die, I'm going to rise in 3 days, and then I'm going to see you again. There's no way that can happen unless you are God in the flesh. And that's what the Bible teaches, that God came down, became a man, and did what he had to do for us. it all makes sense once you really dig into the Bible, and then you dig into history and you realize everywhere that they said there was a contradiction, it wasn't. Everywhere that they said that there was a flaw or something was out of pocket or out of order, it wasn't. And then you start to just dig deeper and realize that there's nothing that you can do to prove this stuff wrong. All you do, the more you try, is you prove it more right and prove it more right. And that's it. So now I'm at the point where I done tested the water so many times, I'm out of test. It's like that. I'm defeated. I can't prove the Bible wrong. Lord, show me the way. I believe. It's like no way around it. So I want to challenge you to do the exact same thing. We talking about somebody that rose from the dead and said, yeah, the Bible is true. Listen to it. All the Old Testament, it's all true. All the story, it's all true. And it was all pointing to me. And then he chose his disciples and his apostles. They wrote what they wrote for, the New Testament, showing us, like, look, this is what Jesus said when he was here. And he told us to spread this to the world. And this is what we did. And now we got Bibles everywhere, in every single city in every country all around the world.
Hell yeah, I mean, yeah.
It is what it is.
It up, man.
But yeah, I just want you to like start looking into it, because all right, I guess we could start with the extra biblical sources, the stuff that points to the Bible that has nothing to do with the Bible, all the way back from the time Jesus was here, and like first century and then second century, third century, all of that. Like look into the history. You'll see the different people, like they're real people, the different leaders.
The history before that, before there was, you know what I mean?
Before
Jesus Christ, you know what I mean? Look at you know what I mean? What them Egyptians was talking about. Look at what the Mayans was talking about. You know what I mean?
Look into it.
Yeah.
You'll see. Now it's world history, so it has to do with fallible men. We're flawed, and men were doing a lot of crazy things.
Yeah, for power.
But one thing never changed, and it's the word of God. The God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. That's one thing that never changed. That's the one thing that's consistent all the way up until today. Jesus said all religion is false. This isn't religion. It's a relationship with God.
That's where I was just, that just basically, you know what I mean, beyond anything, you know what I mean, that's what I started off with, you know what I mean. I ain't found into religion big on my relationship with God himself.
It's a reason why you even feel like God exists, and that you feel like you should have a relationship with God. But you said it yourself, but you don't know who that God is. You don't know who God is. If I was to ask you who is he, you wouldn't be able to answer that.
Yes, you're right.
So I want to challenge you with that. Like, I want to challenge you to study some different things. Or, matter of fact, all the questions that you have about the Bible, all the doubts, put in question form. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And get them doubts erased. It's not up to our opinions. God is who he is without us thinking.
Yeah.
And that's why he had to come down and show us what it was. That's why he sent his son. And that's why we here today, bro. For real, trust me. This is nothing but I'm doing what I'm supposed to do, bro.
Keep doing it too.
Spread the message.
Yeah, you know. That's the path you're going by, you know what I mean? I'm with you, you know what I mean? For you know what I mean?
Yeah.
If anything that...
I need you to be in it for you.
But,
Look,
but
your salvation on the line too.
Yeah, but I'm on my own path unnecessarily, chap, you know what I mean? And building my found relationship as well. So, you know what I mean? I ain't stuck in I ain't, you know what I mean? I'm just,
Well, look,
walking righteously, man.
Just to be all the way blunt, there's only one way. It ain't no other track.
Yeah,
It's only one path. All paths lead to destruction, except for the one path that leads to God. Look, the Bible says, I'm gonna leave it off with this verse right here. There is a way which seems right to a person, or there is a way that seems right to a man, but its end is the way of death. This is what Jesus backs right here. There's a way that may seem right to a person, and that goes along with what you was talking about. Everybody's on their own path. There's always a way to each person that seems right to them, but the end is just death. Because without the God that created this universe, you're essentially following yourself. That's pretty much all you're doing, because it's what seems right to you. But are you right? You gotta know that you're right. It needs to be, you gotta have a reason for, like, there's certain things that somebody follows, and then there's a why. Why do you follow that? There's certain things there's certain ways about you. Why do you think that that's okay? Why do you think that that's true? If you can't answer that, you're your own God at that point. Because it's nothing that nobody else can say. You're on your own path at the end of the day, and that's all you know. But you also can't explain anything about it, and there's no security in anything that you're doing, because it's all just in your mind. You know what I mean? So I'm gonna just leave you with that right there. Take that with you, bro. It's a way that seems right to a man.
Stand up.